All right, Planet. It's a leading provider of daily data and insights about Earth using satellite imagery. It's essentially a new kind of data company that delivers mission-critical insights and solutions to some of the world's most influential companies and governmental organizations. Planet delivers a unique data set, a daily scan of Earth's entire landmass. Yes, the entire Earth is photographed daily, then optimized by machine learning, then delivered via, a cloud-based system. Okay, I know some of you still might be struggling to grasp what the hell I'm talking about, so I'm going to give you a few hypothetical real-world scenarios to help you wrap your mind around this business model. The first scenario or obvious use case is global warming. Understanding what sustainability looks like requires data and analytics for global action. Duh. It's key initiatives like Planet's ability to map carbon that gives us radical transparency on our rapidly changing climate. Another scenario here, government organizations. They obviously use Planet's data to increase global security and transparency by monitoring threats, responding to emergencies, and enforcing local permitting. Heck, if North Korea does something fucking stupid, rest assured I want to know ahead of time in the event a red button needs to be pushed. I mean, who are we kidding here? Or, if everyone remembers in March of this year how one of the world's largest cargo ships got stuck in the Suez Canal. I mean, that was 6 whole days where international trade essentially came to a screeching halt, creating billions of dollars in losses and, creating a logistical nightmare. To put things in perspective, especially considering today's supply chain issues, there's just over 60-some thousand vessels in the world trading fleet. Just try and wrap your mind around the logistics of all those moving ships, then you'll start to see how satellite imagery and, these daily insights can drive tremendous value for some of Planet's subscribers. In forestry, something, we don't hear enough about, Planet's data is used to measure and stop deforestation and to monitor, the sustainability initiatives that are in place. It's not talked about, but the Amazon is quietly, disappearing and exterminating entire ecosystems that the Earth is dependent on. No joke, the New York Times, Thomas Friedman wrote an article about Planet Labs' ability to watch a logging truck enter the Amazon rainforest, then, count each tree that's chopped down. Pretty remarkable stuff. In agriculture, just think about the importance of protecting, the health and stability of our crops. At the end of the day, the nation still has to feed itself. Planet's data helps farmers increase crop yields and revenue, decrease, cost, such as fertilizer use, and adapt sustainable agricultural practices. They literally have the ability to see through clouds. Don't worry, we'll get to that explanation. Another and final scenario here is just like civil government. Heck, if you live in California, then you know damn well the magnitude of summer fires, neighborhoods vanishing, power grids shutting off, or even just think about general pollution, control, weather monitoring, and so on. Needless to say, there's hundreds of different use cases or applications for the data that is collected. All right, how all this thing works. By now, you should be very impressed with what I've shared with you, but you're likely wondering, how the hell is all this possible? Great question, and quite frankly, this powerful data set is collected daily, but it's captured by a fleet of about 200 satellites, which is like the largest Earth observation satellite fleet, ever, which Planet not only designs, builds, and operates in-house. This constellation captures about 3 million images per day. Yeah, 3 million. That's a shit ton, covering over 300 million square kilometers and generating about 25 terabytes of data per day, which quite frankly is just unbelievable to think about. It's almost unimaginable, engineering feat that's carried out, again, daily. With this data captured and archived, on the daily, Planet has an extensive catalog of high-resolution images, over 1,500 on average for every point that is on Earth's landmass. So a shit ton here, providing, of course, the ability to go back through time, chronologically and analyze historical change as well as fuel powerful machine learning applications. All right, the meat and potatoes of this company are quite simple. Planet largely operates on a subscription-based business model in which customers pay, for proprietary data feeds. This data as a service subscription model is not only very scalable, but in my opinion, lays the perfect foundation for significant growth as data increasingly becomes the fuel that powers the global economy. Last year during the pandemic, Planet managed to grow its work pipeline by 45% and believes it's capable of growing about 45% annually year over year for the next 5 years. Revenue this year is expected to be in the neighborhood of $113 million. In 2023, about $190 million. In 2024, $290 million. In 2025, just around $450 million. And of course, 2026 in the neighborhood of $690 million. Moreover, as revenue grows, satellite replacement costs are expected to hold steady. Thus, gross margins should rise steeply and more profit will fall to the bottom line. Who doesn't love that? Between 2021 and 2026, so 5 years here, Planet expects to nearly double its gross profit margin from approximately 40% this year to 74% 5 years from now. The company thinks it can, begin generating positive cash profits about halfway through this process. So say around 2023, 2024-ish, and by the end of it all, Planet expects to be converting 20% to 35% of its revenue, still growing in the 50% range, mind you, into real free cash flow. My two favorite words, cash flow. All right, big ties with Google. Google and Planet's histories are inextricably connected. In 2017, Planet bought Terabella from Google for $500 million. I didn't know what the hell Terabella was, so I looked it up. It was a subsidiary business of Google that captured all the satellite imagery. Also acquired in that deal was a constellation of satellites operated by Google. The long story short is this deal marked the very beginning of a multi-year contract with Google to purchase Earth imaging data from Planet. Fast forward to today, Google continues to harbor Planet's growth, and the two companies have expanded their partnership further by integrating Planet Labs' observation data into Google's cloud infrastructure. So in my personal opinion, again, just an opinion, I think Google will continue to cultivate Planet's growth. This is what they do really well, and potentially down the road acquire it. I know it sounds crazy, but we've seen something like this happen before. All right, looking forward. As we know, detailed satellite imagery used to be an advantage held by only global superpowers. However, today, Planet Labs, as we've discussed, is democratizing, that advantage and spreading it to anyone with a subscription to their daily data. The company is utilizing that capital obtained from going public to accelerate its growth by further expanding its existing markets, but also into new markets, as well as building additional software and machine learning enabled data products and solutions. All of which too is going to be accompanied by a substantial expansion in their sales team by like 10x. It's also important to note that Planet's satellite constellation is constantly improving. The lifespan of their satellites by design is just around 3 years. So obsolete satellites are constantly dropping out of orbit and being replaced with more advanced models. That means that every 3 years, Planet essentially upgrades its entire satellite fleet to a full set of more advanced models. And each one of these satellites too costs I think $300,000 to develop and launch, which seems pretty reasonable. And yet those costs of the improvement, is quite reasonable as well, because it's only about 10% of their annual revenue, which is expected to be less in the future as their revenue rises, but hardware replacement costs hold steady. As for acquisitions, Planet is buying Vandersat, which uses satellite data, novel analytics to help farmers see through clouds, we're going full circle here, to better understand soil and crop conditions. This deal accelerates Planet's agricultural offering and will also add value for their insurance, civil government, and finance customers. This is Planet's fourth acquisition, keeping with their strategy to deliver better insights to more customers across a whole range of markets. So again, just to summarize here, in summary, the company has a massive addressable market, a plethora of potential customers, and of course, a very large barrier to entry. In other words, it will be next to impossible for any substantial competitor to ever surface, let alone overnight, and capture their market share. In a Twitter Spaces held last week, hosted by The Man, Stock Talk Weekly, I think one of FinTwit's very best, he had Niccolo De Masi on there, and he said, quote, we have 200 satellites in orbit. Everyone else has PowerPoint satellites. What else can I say? Case closed.